Hello everyone, this is CRH Films. Today, I'm going to tell you about the 2023 movie, The Boogeyman. In a little girl's closet lives a monster that hunts her family. The young girl sleeps in her bed. The closet door opens, and a terrifying voice calls her to it. The girl wakes up and starts crying. The camera sweeps through the room, showing the fully open door and the silhouette of someone creeping towards the bed. A terrifying hand reaches out to the girl, and her scream fades. Only a few drops of blood remain on the family photo. The closet door closes. The storyline shifts to a teenage girl named Sadie. She's getting ready for school with tears in her eyes, choosing one of her mom's dresses to wear. Meanwhile, her younger sister Sawyer wakes up to find the closet door open. The girl pushes a layer of lamps there to dispel her childhood fears. The family's father, Will Harper, comforts the distressed girl. He works as a psychologist. Upon seeing his daughter's shadow in the doorway, he ends his session to take the kids to school. On the way, they reminisce about their mother and discuss Sawyer's loose tooth. At school, Sadie's classmates express their condolences for her recent loss. However, Sadie remains unresponsive, as she has been wearing headphones the entire time. In the school locker, she finds her mother's last packed lunch. Her friend, Bethany, along with other classmates, approaches Sadie to offer their condolences. Still, one of the girls is not pleased with Sadie's gloomy demeanor, and they exchange harsh words. The argument escalates, and the bully shoves Sadie. Due to the impact, the lunch, which had been sitting for days, ruins Sadie's dress. With tears in her eyes, she runs out of school. Meanwhile, a strange man named Lester visits Dr. Harper. He manages to convince the psychologist to see him without an appointment. He looks fearfully at the open closet doors and requests that they be closed. Lester begins to tell a horrifying story. He lost his 3 children within a year, and while the first death could be explained somehow, the other 2 occurred under mysterious circumstances. He recounts how his children told him about a monster living in the darkness that hunted them. He also gives a drawing by one of his daughters, depicting the same creature. Will believes that Lester is mentally unstable due to the loss of his most precious possessions. The psychologist pretends to go to the restroom but actually calls the police. Lester, once again, gazes at the closet doors, which were just closed moments ago. Sadie returns home and immediately puts her dress in the washing machine. During the process, she hears a commotion coming from her mom's room. Upon entering the room, Sadie discovers scattered belongings everywhere and a family portrait slashed. Upon hearing eerie sounds from the closet, the teenager grabs a knitting needle and, with a frightened expression but confident steps, decides to check who's there. However, she finds no one. Her father rushes in immediately to warn her about a strange man wandering around the house. In a moment, the father and daughter see Lester, who has already left this unjust world. Sawyer, from her school bus window, sees a multitude of emergency vehicles outside their home. Inside, Will provides his testimony about what happened. He believes that Lester, unable to cope with the grief of losing his children, took his own life. Sadie tells the police officer that she heard sounds of a struggle, but her words are not taken seriously. In the evening, Will tucks his daughter in bed and checks under the bed and in the closet to ensure there are no monsters. Then he goes to see Sadie. The elder daughter wants to talk about her mother, but her father recommends discussing it with her psychologist instead. Suffering from grief, Sadie decides to search online for ways to communicate with spirits. But her seance is interrupted by the screams of her younger sister. Sawyer, peering under the bed, sees some strange creature, falls out of bed, and rushes to her sister. Sadie notices blood on her sister's face and decides to extract a loose tooth, just as her mother used to do. The girls are doing a countdown in reverse, but the door is closing on its own. Sally tries to calm her terrified sister and decides to go to sleep with her. Meanwhile, something unknown is pulling the tooth through the door crack. The next day, the sisters go to the psychologist. Sawyer recounts all the horrors that have befallen her in recent days. The psychologist conducts an experiment to help Sawyer become accustomed to darkness and realize that there is nothing to fear. However, in the darkness, the girl spots a monster creeping closer and closer between the flashes of the lamp. The session ends. While the father talks to the psychologist about his daughter's psychological state, Sawyer asks her older sister if she believes in monsters. At night, the closet doors are open again. Sawyer leaves her room and calls for her sister, but her voice seems to come from the attic. The girl rolls a lamp down the hallway, but it inexplicably goes out after turning a corner and returns broken. Meanwhile, Sadie looks for information about Lester's family. Failing to find the necessary information, she goes to her father's office. In the trash can, she finds a patient form with a home address. Moments later, Sadie also discovers Lester's notebook, missing one page. Using a pencil, Sadie manages to reconstruct the drawing. She then listens to a chilling conversation recorded on Lester's dictaphone with an unknown person. The recording ends abruptly with a man's sudden scream, causing Sadie to drop the dictaphone in fear. She then heads to the kitchen to clean the device but notices mold on the ceiling and a silhouette shrouded in darkness. The younger sister rushes in and accuses Sadie of playing a prank on the second floor. The elder sister shows her a drawing from Lester's daughter, depicting the same monster that Sawyer claims to be haunted by. The next day, Sadie asks Bethany for a ride. She wants to visit Lester's house but finds nothing unusual except for the gloomy atmosphere and a feeling of dread. She notices mold on the walls, similar to what she has at home. She climbs to the second floor, where candles are lit everywhere. At the end of the hallway, Sadie sees partially open doors. Behind them is a Polaroid camera that takes a picture as soon as she opens the doors. She sees a silhouette on the freshly taken photo. Suddenly, a woman with a gun appears, Lester's wife, Rita. She tells Sadie about the monster that lives in the darkness. Rita is convinced that it's something very ancient, and this monster preys on families who have suffered the loss of a loved one. During their conversation, Rita spots the boogeyman behind Sadie and shoots at it in fear. Terrified, Sadie runs out of the house and hurriedly returns home. She tells her younger sister that monsters don't exist and locks herself in her room. However, Sawyer continues to knock on the door. When Sadie approaches the door, it suddenly bursts open. The monster knocks her down and crawls into her mouth. A terrified Sadie wakes up in the middle of the night. She hears some noise in her mother's room and decides to investigate. With caution, she sneaks into her mother's room. However, instead of the monster, she finds her father cleaning the room. The girl is not pleased with her father's actions, as this is all that remains of her mother. Will allows her to leave everything as it is if she moves everything to the basement. Without any fear, the girl goes to the basement, as if forgetting everything that has happened to her. In one of the boxes, she finds a camera. There's a video recording of her mother singing a lullaby to young Sadie. The girl decides to try to communicate with her mother's spirit again. Moments later, she hears her mother's voice, just like on the recording. As she walks through the basement, Sadie sees her mother's silhouette far in the darkness. However, turning on the light extinguishes all her hopes. A gloomy Sadie sits in the school restroom. To cheer up her friend, Bethany suggests throwing a party at Sadie's house. However, it's not much of a party. The girls are just sitting in a room, looking at their phones. In an attempt to improve the atmosphere, Sadie suggests smoking the last of her mother's stash. However, after just one drag, the girl coughs uncontrollably. Sadie rushes to the bathroom and pulls a string with a tooth attached to it from her mouth, which she had recently extracted from her sister. Later, some classmates enter, asking to see the room where Lester hanged himself. Upon entering, Sadie notices a large mold stain on almost the entire wall. One of the classmates closes the door, leaving Sadie alone in the darkness. Suddenly, from the darkness, a monster's face briefly appears, then disappears. Sadie hears her mother's voice from the video again, and behind it, the boogeyman emerges from the darkness. The girl rushes to the door, and it opens. Sadie immediately attacks the bully, giving her a slap. She then kicks everyone out of her house. Meanwhile, Sawyer is playing video games. After the guests leave, the girl notices a silhouette shrouded in darkness. Using the flashes from the gunshots to illuminate the room, she sees something creeping closer and closer. Sawyer lies on the couch, trying not to make a sound, but the monster is getting closer. Only when she hears her sister's voice does the girl muster the courage to look around. However, the monster, hiding behind the television, waits for the child's gaze. It then pounces on her. Sawyer flies across the room and crashes into the TV. Terrified, she regains consciousness in the hospital. She tells about the monster that attacked her. Sadie believes her sister because she had her own terrifying encounter with the creature. Sadie sets out to find her father, but a call from Lester's widow diverts her attention. Rita says she found a way to deal with the boogeyman but can't do it alone. Before setting out to seek justice, Sally tells her father about all the horrors she has endured over the past few days. But father doesn't believe his daughter because he smelled cannabis, so he thinks it's all in her imagination. Candles are placed everywhere in the house, along with traps made from shotgun shells. Sadie nearly loses her life because of one of them. But for Rita, Sadie is needed as bait. The woman attacks the girl from behind and ties her to a pipe. Rita turns off the lights and waits in ambush for the monster. One by one, the candles begin to extinguish. The boogeyman appears in the darkness. The monster freezes right in front of the trap when it sees the girl. In a moment, the monster lunges forward, and a hail of bullets from the shotgun rains down on the boogeyman. Rita leaves her hiding spot and delivers 2 more point-blank shots to the head. She returns to Sadie, but at the same time, the monster suddenly attacks Rita. In surprise, Rita takes 1 more shot, and the bullets hit the pipe, freeing the bait. Sadie, with all her strength, runs away, but the monster catches up. The girl manages to reach a lamp, and the creature miraculously disappears. Rushing out of the house, Sadie immediately calls her father and begs him not to enter the house under any circumstances. However, her father and younger daughter are already at the doorstep. The boogeyman drags Willa and the younger daughter into the darkness-shrouded house. Sadie races back home, but besides the darkness and eerie atmosphere, there's nothing else. Near one of the doors, the girl sees the flickering of a string of lights. Opening the door, Sadie receives a dose of deodorant sprayed in her face. She barely manages to convince her sister that it's her and not the monster. Sadie learns from her sister that the boogeyman has taken their father into the basement. A girl cosplays Casey Jones and goes to help her father. The younger sister follows, accidentally touches the box and knocks over the container with the solvent. The sisters find their father in the clutches of the monster. The boogeyman wastes no time and attacks, overturning a shelving unit, causing Sawyer to lose consciousness. The monster then lunges at Sadie. Father comes to help. The man drives away the monster with an aimed blow with a fragment of a stick and flies away from the blow in return. Sawyer regains consciousness and rushes to her father. However, the length of the cord falls short, plunging the room into darkness. Their father retrieves a lighter, but he can't do much more due to his broken leg. The daughters approach their father, but eventually, the flames die out. Sadie attempts to ignite a fire, but nothing works. The monster slowly approaches under the flashes of sparks. But at the last moment, the flames burst to life uncontrollably. Sadie remembers her rituals and realizes that it's her mother's spirit coming to help. Using deodorant, Sadie manages to drive the monster away, but it runs out. The younger sister comes to the rescue and douses the monster with solvent. A well-aimed throw of the lighter envelopes the boogeyman in flames. Together with the monster, all the mold that had spread throughout the entire house turns to ashes. The family rushes out onto the street, and all that remains is to watch the house burn. Later, the family sits in a psychologist's office. After the session, the psychologist asks Sadie to stay for a moment. She returns to the room, but it's empty except for the open closet door. Sadie approaches the door, but the psychologist calls her and gives her a sign that she didn't ask her to stay. Sadie closes the door,